Hi there, I'm going to read Robin Hood Chapter 2, Robin Hood Meets Little John. Okay. The news that Lob had brought from Nottingham proved to be quite true. The sheriff sent a great band of well-armed men against the outlaws, a band so strong that the outlaws had to leave Sherwood for a time and seek refuge in another great woodland, that of Barnesdale in Yorkshire. But they loved their haunts in merry Sherwood above all other places, and returned as soon as they discovered that the angry sheriff had given up the chase. Now Robin Hood saw that his band was not strong enough to hold its own with the Norman Rangers, and he looked about for stout men who would be a gain to his fellowship. Many men, driven to despair by harsh and cruel lords, wished to join him, but he took none but such as were proved to be bold, staunch, and trusty. If he heard of any man who was strong and clever beyond his fellows, he did his utmost to draw that man to him, and he very rarely failed, so that little by little he gathered a powerful band of splendid archers about him, all picked men, of whom it was said that one of Robin Hood's men was worth 4 common bowmen. Now, it happened one day that Robin Hood went roving through the greenwood, and a number of his men went with him. They came to the border of the forest and looked out across the open country. "Stay among the trees, my men," said Robin. "It would draw attention if a company should be seen marching across the fields. But I will go forward alone to see if any adventure may promise for us. Perchance some rich knight or abbot may be on the road this fine morning, and we will lighten his swollen purse of its load. If I need ye, I will sound my bugle horn." So Much and Will Stutely and Wat and the rest stayed in hiding in the forest, and Robin went on alone. He walked down to the high road, but it seemed empty, and he strolled along it. Presently he came to a place where a brook ran across the road. Horses went through a ford, but foot passengers could cross by a long, narrow wooden bridge without a handrail. Robin stepped on the bridge to walk across, and at the very instant that he did so, a huge fellow, a very giant of a man, stepped on the farther end. Each moved forward briskly, thinking that the other would give way, and they met in the middle of the bridge. "By Our Lady," thought Robin Hood to himself, "this is a noble yeoman. Would that I could win him over to my side. I will see if he has metal to match his size." In truth, such a man as the stranger was not often met with. He was head and shoulders taller than Robin, of immense breadth of shoulder and depth of chest, long-armed and long-legged, and appeared strong as a bull. He had a pleasant face and bright brown eye, but there was a quiet resolution in his bearing which hinted that he would be a very awkward person to cross. Robin made test of him at once. "Give way, my man," he cried. "What meant ye by stepping on the bridge when you saw that I was about to come over, and that the bridge is not wide enough for 2? The stranger carried beside his sword a huge quarter-staff, full 7 feet long, thick and heavy, a tremendous cudgel. He now quietly leaned upon it, and smiled as he said, "And why should I stand aside for you, archer? Let me tell you that I have never stood aside for any man yet, and see no reason to begin this day." "What?" cried Robin. "You bandy words with me, do you? I'll show you some right Nottingham play, my fine fellow, big as you are." And with that Robin Hood slipped an arrow on the string of his bow and drew it to his ear. "Now," went on Robin, "back with you, I say. Your life is in my hands. I could send this shaft through your heart before you could lift your staff to fetch a single blow at me." Robin did this to see if the stranger would show fear, but the tall man listened as calmly as if Robin had been giving him a good day. "A coward's trick, that would be," replied the stranger. "Here stand I with but a staff in my hand, And you threaten me with longbow and grey goose shaft? A coward's trick, I say. Nay, quoth Robin, I will gladly meet thee on thy own terms. So Robin laid aside his great bow of Spanish yew, and his quiver of sharp-pointed arrows, ran to a thicket beside the stream, and cut himself a stout staff of ground oak. When he came back with his stick, the stranger was still resting on his quarterstaff in the middle of the bridge. Here we will fight where we have met, cried Robin Hood, and the man who knocks the other into the stream shall be the winner. Agreed, cried the gigantic stranger, and the two combatants faced each other warily, setting their feet cautiously on the narrow planking, and grasping their staves about midway of the length in order to be ready for assault or defense. For a few moments the two champions whirled their sticks about, feinting, striking, parrying, each searching for an opening in the other's guard. Robin was the first to get in a body blow. He pretended to strike at the stranger's head. The latter raised his staff swiftly to parry, and Robin, changing his hold and the direction of his blow with wonderful speed and dexterity, caught his opponent a tremendous thwack across the ribs. The giant gave a growl of anger, and replied with such a terrific slashing cut that no man could have stood before it. But Robin dodged it nimbly, and replied with a smart rap across the shoulder. But even as this fell, the stranger whirled his staff in his hands, and launched a shrewd stroke at Robin's head. Nothing but Robin's quickness saved him from being knocked headlong into the stream, and as it was he did not altogether escape. The big man's staff glanced across his head, cut his crown, and caused the blood to stream down the side of his face. This put Robin in such a rage that he dealt a whole shower of blows at his opponent with such swiftness that the tall man was kept entirely on the defensive. He was forced to parry, parry, parry all the time. Time and again Robin's quick staff got home on the big man's body, but the tall fellow never gave way an inch, but fought stoutly on. Suddenly the giant repaid Robin Hood's many thwacks once and for all. Gathering all his tremendous strength, he brought down his great staff with all the power of his long arms and mighty body. Robin parried, but though his stick was held correctly, he might as well have tried to parry a thunderbolt. Down came the crashing blow. It broke Robin Hood's staff in two. It fell with but little diminished force on Robin's body, and hurled him flying into the brook. Beneath the bridge was a deep pool, and in went Robin Hood, head over ears. In a moment he came up, gasping for breath. "Ha ha, Master Archer," laughed the stranger merrily. "Where art thou now?" "By my faith," replied Robin Hood, spluttering and blowing, for he had swallowed a good deal of water, "methinks I am in the brook fairly enough, and thou hast won the bout. But I'll freely say, thou hast won fairly." Then Robin Hood waded to the side and climbed onto the bank, pulling himself up by the aid of a whitethorn bush which grew at the waterside. As soon as he was on the bank, Robin set his horn to his mouth and blew the lusty notes which formed his own bugle call. Scarce had the valley ceased ringing with the echo of the horn than his stout bowmen came in sight, Much and Wat and Will running ahead of the rest in their eagerness to gain the side of their leader. "Why, master," cried Will Stutely as they ran up to the place, "what is the meaning of this? You are wet to the skin, and the water is dripping from you. Have you been in the brook?" "Ay, that I have, Will," replied Robin Hood, "and there stands the man who put me there," and he pointed to the gigantic stranger. "Then in he goes too," cried Will, and Much and Wat shouted, "Ay, ay, 'twere foul shame to let him go scot-free after treating our leader so. In with him, lads." The stranger prepared to resist, but even his great strength would not have availed him against the crowd of angry yeomen had not Robin Hood called upon them to desist. "Hold your hands, my lads," said Robin. "You shall do no wrong to this bold heart. It was a fair fight, and he won, and I owe him no grudge for it. Rather would I be friends with so stout a striker. Come, and now," Robin turned to the stranger, "join us and be one of our band." first," said the stranger. "Who are ye? I have sworn to enlist under one man, and one man only, and in search of him have I come." "I am Robin Hood," said the leader. "Robin Hood!" cried the other. "Oh, happy day! It is he for whom I search, and to Sherwood Forest am I making my way to enter his goodly company, if I may." "Thou mayest in very truth," cried Robin, "and gladly will I receive thee. Methinks such a recruit is not picked up every day. And what shall we call thee?" "My name is John Little," replied the stranger. "I'll serve thee well and faithfully, and here's my hand on it." When Will Stutely heard the stranger's name, he began to laugh. "John Little!" he cried. "By my faith, that name ought to be changed, and as he is a newcomer to our band, let him be christened anew. I will name him." "And what wilt thou call him then?" cried Much. "Why, seeing that the infant is so puny, his name shall no longer be John Little, but he shall be called Little John." The outlaws laughed at the idea of calling this giant Little John, but the jest pleased them, and the name was given to the new recruit. "Now, for a jolly feast to finish off the christening," said Will Stutely. "It is not every day we get such a stout companion in our band, and we must have a revel in honor of it." So they went back to the forest, and soon 2 fat does had fallen to their knee shafts and were being carried to their hiding place, the great cave in the rock, which was their secure retreat. Here they built a great fire, roasting their venison, and feasted on the rich meat, washing it down with mighty draughts of nut-brown ale. When the feast was over, they sang to the music of the harp, and danced, and enjoyed the frolic to their heart's content. High above them all rose the head of Little John, who was to prove so staunch of soul and stout of hand, whose name was to fill the ballads with a renown second only to his great leader, Robin Hood. Okay, that's the end of that chapter. Next chapter, Will Scarlet joins the band. Thank you for listening.